never thought about this. ESPN's Ben Baby, whoever that is, that's a fresh name, has come under fire on social media from WNBA fans after he raised questions about why reporters are denied access to locker rooms for post-game player interviews. Now, immediately you start thinking he's trying to get the Freak-a-Leak on. You know what I'm saying? You're thinking Petey Pablo over here, like Freak-a-Leak. No, it doesn't always have to be that way.
A male reporter, one tweet, and within 48 hours, the entire sports internet was on fire. Not because of a bad game, not because of a controversial foul call, not because Caitlin Clark dropped 40, but because someone who covers football for a living decided, out of nowhere, that he had the right to walk into a women's locker room. And when the WNBA said no, he called it ridiculous. What happened next wasn't just a social media argument. It ripped open a wound that the sports world has been quietly ignoring for decades. And before this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why this moment matters far beyond one reporter and one tweet. Here is what you need to understand first. The WNBA is not the same league it was 5 years ago. Not even close. We are talking about sold-out arenas from Indianapolis to Las Vegas. We are talking about a rookie class, led by Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, that broke viewership records that had stood for 20 years. The Indiana Fever became appointment television. The Las Vegas Aces were defending champions with Io Wilson playing like a force of nature nobody could stop. The New York Liberty, with Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, were hunting a title like it was personal. The league had arrived, officially, undeniably, and with that arrival came something the WNBA never had to deal with at this scale before. A stampede of media attention from people who, just a season ago, couldn't have named 5 players in the entire league. Reporters who spent their careers covering men's sports.
Days old, ESPN's Ben Baby has drawn significant backlash for questioning the policy of the WNBA's locker room access. All right, it still remains wholly ridiculous that the WNBA doesn't have an open locker room media policy. He covers the Cincinnati Bengals for ESPN, the only major sport in the U.S. that doesn't have it. Bad for the fans and growth for the game.
Suddenly wanted a seat at the table. They wanted interviews. They wanted access. They wanted content. And one of them wanted the locker room. His name is Ben Baby. He covers the Cincinnati Bengals for ESPN. Solid reporter. Knows football. But when the WNBA season opened, he did something that nobody expected. He logged on, typed out a statement, and hit send. It still remains wholly ridiculous that the WNBA doesn't have an open locker room media policy. The only major sport in the U.S. that doesn't have it. Bad for the fans and growth of the game. Read that again. Slowly. He didn't ask a question. He didn't open a conversation. He issued a verdict. He looked at female athletes who wanted the basic human dignity of changing clothes and receiving medical treatment in private. And he called their protection wholly ridiculous. He dressed it up as concern for fans. He packaged his entitlement in the language of growth and access and journalism. But the WNBA community saw straight through it. Within hours, his mentions were a war zone. Players, fans, journalists, and former athletes were responding with fury that had been building for a long, long time.
Fans and growth for the game. While Baby's intention was to argue that greater locker room access for reporters would help boost the WNBA's popularity, I don't see how it hurts. Think about it. If you get those immediate emotional comments from athletes before they get a time to clean up not only their bodies, but their minds, they get time away. The longer you let them get away, the more calculated they're going to become, right? You're not going to get that primal lizard brain response you want. You're going to get that, well, my publicist has already called me on the way home and I know what to say now. We don't want that. We want that gangster.
Because here is the thing. This wasn't really about Ben Baby. Ben Baby was just a match. The powder keg had been sitting there for years. Think about what these women go through. Caitlin Clark walks into an arena and gets physical contact on every single play. Contact that often would be called a foul. Contact that would end careers in other leagues. Io Wilson plays through injuries that don't make the injury report because the scrutiny would be unbearable. Angel Reese absorbs online hatred at a volume that would break most people, and she shows up the next game with a double-double. These athletes are warriors. And after the final buzzer, After they have given everything they physically have, they walk into that locker room, and for one moment, just one, they are not performers. They are not content. They are human beings who need to ice their knees, breathe through the pain, and process what just happened without a camera 3 feet from their face. That is not a privilege. That is not a policy loophole. That is basic human dignity. And Ben Baby called it wholly ridiculous. The backlash wasn't just anger. It was something deeper. It was years of being ignored, then years of being exploited, colliding in a single moment of absolute clarity. But here is where this story gets even more complicated.
You got to do it for the ladies. What's the difference? Really, what's the difference? Diana Rossini, women reporters are walking in there where there's 3 legs hanging. What you doing? If y'all can walk in on us, guess what? We can walk in on you. Oh, you don't want it that way. Well, guess what? You also not going to get the same level of respect, right? Why you think gangs always jump each other in? Because they like, look, I know.
Because the loudest voice to come to Ben Baby's defense, the argument that genuinely shook people, didn't come from a reporter. It came from a former NFL Pro Bowler. And what he said forced the WNBA community to confront an uncomfortable question that nobody had a clean answer to. Just when the internet had fully made up its mind, just when the verdict seemed unanimous, one voice stepped into fire and flipped the entire argument upside down. And the worst part? He had a point. Not a popular point. Not a comfortable point. But the kind of point that makes you pause the video, stare at the ceiling, and think, wait, is he right? Marcellus Wiley is not someone you dismiss easily. 2-time Pro Bowl defensive end, 14 years in the NFL, a man who spent his entire career in the exact locker rooms that are now at the center of this debate. He has seen what media access looks like from the inside, not as a journalist, but as the athlete being approached. And when Ben Baby's tweet exploded across the internet, Wiley didn't pile on with crowd. He went the other direction entirely. His argument, stripped down to its core, was this: the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, every major American sport has an open locker room policy.
Because I ain't perverted. I don't care that much. But if you going to say it was good for the goose, ain't good for the gander, guess what? When it comes time to give out credit, respect, praise, we ain't giving it out the same because y'all don't even want to be respected the same. The cost of praise is criticism. The cost of being great is you're going to have to risk it all and maybe be bad. Either it's going to be a home run or that same swing is a what? Strike.
Male athletes have been subject to it for decades. Female reporters walk into NFL locker rooms. Female reporters stand next to players wrapped in towels and conduct interviews. The men don't get a privacy exception. So why? Wiley asked, should the standard be different for female athletes? If the WNBA is demanding to be treated as a major sport, and they absolutely deserve that, then why is it acceptable to hold a different media access standard than every other major sport in the country? The crowd went quiet because nobody wanted to admit that the question was legitimate. Here is where it gets genuinely complicated, and anyone who tells you it's simple is not being honest with you. The open locker room policy in American sports exists because of a legal battle fought by women. In 1978, a female reporter named Melissa Ludke sued Major League Baseball for the right to enter the Yankees locker room and do her job the same way her male colleagues could. She won. The policy that followed opened doors, literally, for generations of female sports journalists. So the policy was born from equality, from the fight for women in sports media. But now that same policy is being pointed at female athletes as a reason to eliminate their privacy. And that tension between the rights of women who cover sports and the rights of women who play sports is something the sports world has never fully resolved. Breanna Stewart can talk about this. She's been in the league long enough to remember when there were almost no cameras at all. Now, after one record-breaking season of Caitlin Clark mania, suddenly every media outlet in America wants total, unrestricted access. The leap from irrelevance to invasion happened almost overnight, and that speed matters. Because the NFL locker room policy was built over decades with protocols, with standards, with understood boundaries on both sides. The WNBA is being asked to implement it in the middle of a cultural explosion with no runway, no preparation, and a media landscape that is more aggressive and more chaotic than anything that existed when Melissa Ludke walked into Yankee Stadium. Wiley's argument was philosophically consistent, but it ignored the reality on the ground. Let's talk about something the debate mostly avoided. The NFL locker room policy has produced some genuinely disturbing incidents over the years. Players have been deliberately exposed in front of female reporters. Reporters have described environments that were hostile, degrading, and designed to intimidate them into leaving. The system that was supposed to create equality has, in documented cases, been weaponized against the very women it was meant to protect. Now flip that dynamic. Put female athletes in the equivalent position. Put them in a locker room, physically exhausted, medically vulnerable, in various states of undress, surrounded by reporters, including male reporters, with phones and microphones and social media accounts, and a relentless pressure of a content cycle that never, ever stops. Diana Taurasi once said that the locker room is the last place in a professional athlete's world where you can be completely real, where the mask comes off, where the performance ends. That space is sacred, not metaphorically, actually sacred to the people who occupy it. And now a football reporter, who has never covered a WNBA game in his professional life, was publicly declaring that sacred space should be opened up in the name of fan engagement. The WNBA players didn't just push back on the policy. They pushed back on the audacity, on the timing, on the source, because there is one more layer to this story that almost nobody talked about. One piece of context that reframes everything. The actual economics of why this access debate exploded right now, in this season, at this exact moment. It has everything to do with Caitlin Clark, and it is darker than you think. Every controversy has a surface story, and then it has the real story. The surface story is a reporter, a tweet, and a locker room policy. The real story is money, power, and a league that went from being ignored to being hunted almost overnight. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's be precise about what happened to the WNBA in the span of roughly 12 months. Caitlin Clark declared for the draft. The Indiana Fever selected her first overall. And then something happened that nobody, not the commissioner, not the sponsors, not ESPN, fully predicted. The entire sports landscape shifted. Fever games sold out in minutes. Road games became home games for Clark's fan base, filling arenas in Seattle, Chicago, and Phoenix with Iowa gold. Television ratings for regular season WNBA games hit numbers the league hadn't seen since the Lisa Leslie era. Merchandise sales shattered records. Sponsors lined up. Billboards went up. Clark's face was everywhere. And right behind her, Angel Reese arrived in Chicago and brought her own army. Loud, proud, and completely devoted. Their rivalry, born in the NCAA championship game that stopped the entire country, continuing the pros with voltage that the WNBA had never experienced at that scale. The league didn't just grow. It transformed overnight. And that transformation triggered something predictable but insidious. Because when money enters a space that was previously overlooked, the people who ignore that space don't come back with humility. They come back with demands. Here is the uncomfortable truth about why Ben Baby's tweet landed the way it did. It wasn't an isolated opinion. It was a symptom. In the weeks surrounding that tweet, a pattern had become impossible to ignore. Content creators, journalists, and media personalities who had spent years dismissing the WNBA were suddenly flooding the zone, not to celebrate the league, but to extract drama from it. Every controversial foul, every hard screen, every post-game interaction between Clark and Reese, every moment of tension was amplified, dissected, and monetized. The WNBA had become a content machine, and the media wanted more fuel, locker room access. In that context, wasn't about journalism. It was about the next viral clip. It was about catching a player in an unguarded moment, exhausted, emotional, raw, and turning that moment into engagement. It was about feeding an algorithm that rewards conflict and vulnerability above everything else. Kelsey Plum talked about it. Eric Ogunbo talked about it. The feeling that the sudden media attention wasn't for them. It was of them. That they had become content to be consumed rather than athletes to be covered. And that distinction matters enormously. Aya Wilson, the reigning MVP, the most dominant player in the league, had spent years building something real in Las Vegas with the Aces. 2 championships. A level of basketball that deserved every highlight reel, every think piece, every front page. And even she noted, with characteristic directness, that the media surge felt less like recognition and more like extraction. The locker room demand was the moment that feeling had a name. So where does this actually land? Marcellus Wiley's philosophical argument about equal standards deserves respect. Consistency matters. If we believe in equal treatment across sports, then access policies should eventually converge. That conversation is worth having, carefully, collaboratively, with the athletes at the center of it. But Ben Baby didn't start that conversation. He declared a verdict on Twitter. He called the WNBA's policy wholly ridiculous without context, without nuance, without any apparent awareness of what it means to ask female athletes, in the middle of a media explosion they never asked for, to surrender the one private space they have left. There's a way to advocate for expanded media access that respects the athletes, that builds trust over time, that involves the Players Association, team leadership, and the women themselves in designing something that works. That is not what happened. What happened was entitlement dressed up as journalism. And the WNBA community, players, fans, and the journalists who have covered this league to the lean years, through the empty arenas, through the midnight highlights that nobody watched, they recognize it immediately because they have seen this before. The people who show up after the work is done, after the culture is built, after the sacrifice has already been paid, and demand the keys to everything. Sue Bird built something over 20 years in Seattle that the casual sports world barely acknowledged. Diana Taurasi played through injuries and eras and cultural shifts to keep this league alive. Breanna Stewart came back from a torn Achilles and won a championship and still had to fight for a fraction of the recognition she deserved. They did not build this league so that a football reporter could score content points by demanding access to their most private space. Here is what this controversy actually revealed. The WNBA's greatest challenge right now is not talent. It is not scheduling. It is not even revenue, though that battle continues. It is the fight to control the narrative of their own league, to decide who gets access, how much, when, and on whose terms, to grow without being consumed, to invite the world in without surrendering everything to it. That fight is happening in real time. In every tweet, every post-game press conference, every policy decision the league makes this season and next. And the players, Clark firing from half court, Wilson posting up with terrifying efficiency, Reese battling for every rebound like the game owes or something. They are not just playing basketball anymore. They are fighting for something bigger. The right to define what this league is, not what the content economy wants it to be. And if this controversy proved anything, it's that the WNBA's most powerful asset isn't its stars or its ratings or its sold-out arenas. It's the fact that it knows exactly who it is, and it is done apologizing for it. If this video hit different, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your take in the comments. Whose side are you on? And subscribe because this league is moving fast and we are not slowing down.